gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings. To you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best law, to you I prostrate. With supreme science, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust-free like you, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that free one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all 3 ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many realms, atoms in all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Study your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, the flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. From Tushita's hundreds of gods, protector's heart, to tip of this fresh, pure, white, deep, good like cloud, O Lobsangrakpa, Dharma's omniscient King, pray come to this place with your disciples, in space ahead on lion throne, notice and moon, venerable Guru, smile brightly with delight, praise the hundreds of eons to spread doctrine, as supreme merit, field for my mind of faith. Your wisdom mind sees full range of knowables. Your eloquent speech adorns fortune it is. Your beauteous body, fame, glory, outstanding. Homage to you, worthwhile to think of, hear and see. Present offerings of water, various flowers, fragrant incense, light, perfume, and so on. Oceans of offerings set out and envisioned, offered up to you, supreme field Tsugyen Tsongkapa Lobsang Rakpe Japla Sowade. O glorious and precious root Guru, great exceed of lotus and my crown, caring for me with your great kindness, bestow attainments of body, speech, and mind. O glorious and precious root Guru, great exceed of lotus at my heart, caring for me with your great kindness, bestow attainments common and supreme. O glorious and precious root Guru, great exceed of lotus at my heart, caring for me with your great kindness, until supreme awakening remain steadfast. Homage to the exalted three jewels. Thus have I heard at one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgiriya on Balcha mountain, together with a great assembly of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of the countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. At that very time, the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly at the practice of profound perfection of wisdom, perfectly looking at the emptiness of inherent existence of the five aggregates also. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, how should a child of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to the Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whichever son or daughter of the lineage who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly at the emptiness of inherent existence of the five aggregates also. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, form is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are empty, without characteristics. That is, they are not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement and no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visible form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no object of touch, no mental phenomena. There is no eye element and so forth up to no mind element, up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no cessation of ignorance and so forth up to no aging and death and no cessation of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, no origin, no cessation and no path. No exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, but bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom, and because their minds have no obstructions, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond error, they attain the final state beyond sorrow. All the Buddhas who reside in the three times by relying upon the perfection of wisdom become manifest and complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequaled mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it is not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayatal Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, this is how Bodhisattva, a great being, should train in profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, well said, O child of the lineage, so it is. The profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced exactly as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, and the entire assembly, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, Gandharvas, and others, were filled with admiration and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. In the holy supreme abode of the Dakinis, possessed of clairvoyance and miraculous power, unwaveringly caring for practitioners as your children, homage to the host of the three places Dakinis. Akasamaraja Sadarasam. Akasamaraja Sadarasamaria Pray. Taita Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Soha. Through the power of truth of the exalted three jewels speech, may all in the sight of negativity, such as the four Maras, be stopped. May they be non-existent, may they be pacified. All enemies, obstructors, and hindrances, Shinti Kuriya Soha. The 80,000 types of obstructors pacified, freed from adverse harmful conditions, may all be conducive in perfect auspiciousness, bring happiness and well-being here right now.
Okay, let's just take a few minutes to meditate on our breath. So I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to do that. And now, now look within and see if you can find your mind. Try and see what it is and where it is. And how it works. So what we are is simply a combination of body and mind, an association of mind and body. It's very easy to point out our body, not quite as easy to point out our mind. Yet of the two, mind is much more important. So in many ways we're much more familiar with our body than we are with our mind, even though it's of lesser importance. All sentient beings have a body and a mind, but there are some sentient beings who just have a mind, no body. A sentient being that has a body and no mind. So again, look within. Try to identify your mind. What does it look like? Where is it? What's it doing? So if you can find your mind, look into it and see what your motivation is for being here tonight, because that's where the motivation comes from the mind. So remembering that the purpose of our life is to free all sentient beings from suffering and lead them to enlightenment, see if the motivation for being here is the same or something different. So if our motivation for being here is just something to do with the benefit, happiness, the comfort of this life, then we should recognize that as a negative motivation, as the cause of suffering, and determine not to follow that, toss it out and replace it with this highest motivation. So briefly just think, I'm here tonight in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Reaching enlightenment depends on following the path to enlightenment. And that is done primarily with the mind. So I'm here tonight to learn more about my mind so that I can follow the path to enlightenment. For the sole purpose of enlightening all sentient beings. So try to set that motivation for for everything we do, but especially for coming to a Dharma class at a Dharma center. Okay, thank you. So, not quite sure what I'm supposed to do here. How long has Geshela been teaching this class?
Probably about, say, between 6 and 8 weeks. Longer, maybe.
Who's been coming to that class? Everybody? Off and on? Well, doing better than me. Have you been coming?
Yeah, I haven't been the last couple of weeks, but I started.
Yeah, and what, is that the...
Yes, and the pink is where we are.
Pretty serious stuff. So that's good. So this was translated by Elizabeth Napa. So she worked on this book, Mind in Tibetan Buddhism. You know that one? And she was married briefly to Jeffrey Hopkins. So everyone familiar with this book, Meditation on Emptiness? You familiar with this book, Meditation on Emptiness, by Jeffrey Hopkins? Who's got it? Yeah, this is like amazing book, I think. All the important topics that we study are included here, and you know, it's not necessarily something you read from cover to cover. You read from cover to cover? But you know, if you want to look something up, you usually find it there. It's one of the most useful books that you can have. Generally, sometimes we call this mind and mental factors, this topic. So this covers mainly mind, doesn't it? Just mentions mental factors towards the end. Is mind in Tibetan Buddhism. There's also this book, The Mind and Its Functions, by Geshela. Mind and Its Functions. So there's mind, primary minds and mental factors. And then there's other sort of states of consciousness of, in perception and conception, ideal mind, non-ideal mind, all that stuff. So this was translated by Stephen Batchelor. Back before he started doing his more unusual stuff. So I have studied this. I did when Geshe Tsoga, our previous teacher here, taught this. But I can't remember any of that. It was several years ago. But I first became aware of this kind of detailed analysis and explanation about the mind in my first meditation course in Nepal, Copan, in 1972. There was a book. This is a later edition. The one we had was a little more primitive than this, in its physically. It didn't have this nice plastic binding. It was tied with a kind of shoelace. Nepalese paper. So this is a textbook that was used at the Copan meditation courses, and it was initially put together by the students from the second course that Lama Zopa Rinpoche taught. I was at the third course. And the first subject, and if you come into this cold, as I was, the first chapter says the mind is beginningless. So, right there launches into one of the most important attributes or properties of the mind, that it has no beginning and no end. And I think, for most people that's kind of a pretty radical concept. Do you think? You don't think so? You think most people out there believe that?
Most people, yeah, I think you're right.
Most people, anyway, in my experience, most people think there's only this life, and they don't think that, some people may believe in an afterlife, but they don't think this is an afterlife with a previous life somehow. So that doesn't really make sense either, if you think about it. So clearly, if the mind is beginningless, the body isn't beginningless, so there's a difference right there. And so if you had to, how would you define the mind? Yeah, you.
I would define it as
2 words.
clear and knowing.
Thank you. So, everybody knows that, right? Clear and knowing. So clear means it's formless, unobstructed. Knowing means has ability to perceive objects. Have you ever tried to persuade anybody about mind, past and future lives? And
Not wholeheartedly.
half-heartedly? What sort of logic do you use?
For me, it's actually quite liberating to think about it as beginningless because it solves a lot of questions, and so I often talk about how people are willing to accept the infiniteness of space, even scientists, but so if you can think about space as being infinite, how come you can't think of the mind as being beginningless? To me, it's the same, it takes the same kind of leap in a way, and also just from causality. I mean, it doesn't make sense if you believe in causality that you can have it cause, a result.
You mean karma?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. So, most people don't believe in that either. Regular people. Not strange people like us. Yeah. A lot of people, like myself, ascribe to the idea that there are past and future lives and the mind is beginningless and endless. But when I look at how I live my life, I don't really live quite in accord with that theory, So I think we need to meditate on the beginningless and endlessness of mind to sort of prove it to ourselves a little more in experience rather than just having the idea. And have you done meditations on beginninglessness of mind? Going back and trying to remember the first thing and then trying to go back and then trying to remember being in the room and like that. Yes, have you done that? So that's a very good meditation to do. Lama Yeshe used to have us do that quite a bit. Just to get a feeling of how the mind flows. And to try and get a feeling of the way it flows in this life. Is the same as it flows back through previous lives and will flow into future lives. And then, so not to grasp too strongly, the things and experiences of this life. And also if we meditate on the mind, the nature of the mind more, we can again see how it is indeed clear or formless, and not some kind of product of the brain. So, in your body, where is the mind? Where is it?
Well, it's not in particular. I mean, consciousness, the way I look at it and conceptualize it, there's different layers. But, most people...
Like one on top of the other, or?
Well, like, physiologically, obviously, the pat answer is that consciousness resides in the brain. There's different levels of the brain. The cerebral cortex could be more Homo sapien, but you could go down to the mammalian brain. I mean, our brain is obviously, it's a product of evolution. So in a sense, we have a similar consciousness to other species, but it just progressively has evolved.
What do you think? Where's the mind? In the body? Think it's in the brain?
No, it's all throughout the body. It travels on the winds. So it's distributed all.
Can you hear it?
It's distributed all throughout the body, wherever the winds go.
Distributed throughout the body wherever the winds go.
Well, it's mounted on the winds.
Right. So there are different explanations about what Maureen's saying is the tantric explanation. The Tantra talks about the three levels of mind or consciousness. The gross consciousness, subtle consciousness, and the most subtle consciousness. And associated with those three levels of consciousness are the winds, or prana, or chi. I think it's in different languages. So the mind and the wind are connected. So wherever the wind goes, the mind goes. And there are, and it doesn't just kind of flop around the body willy-nilly. There are psychic channels through which the mind and wind travel, said to be 72,000 throughout the body. And there's a main central channel, and there are right and left psychic channels running alongside the central channel, and then from different energy centers or chakras there are other channels that branch out, 8 or 16, 32, and then they divide up like a sort of capillary network of psychic channels. So these are sort of the subtle body. So you wouldn't find them on dissection. I never did. So, in Tantra, clearly the mind is distributed throughout the whole body. It's not just localized in the brain. And I think in Sutra, It's also considered the consciousness is wherever the body can feel, there's mind, you know. But it doesn't talk about channels, I don't think. Also, there's another, we're talking about causality or cause and effect. There's an axiom that effects have to be similar in nature to their principal cause, in the way that an apple seed will give rise to an apple tree, not an orange tree. The principal cause of an apple tree is apple seed. But there are other conditions like earth and water and sunshine and minerals and so on that help the seed to grow. So there are principal and secondary causes of mental experiences as well, and the principal cause of the mind, since the mind is formless, the principal cause of the mind also has to be formless. It can't be some physical substance like the brain. So if we talk about a moment of mind, which is kind of a concept because the mind isn't made up. The mind is a series of moments flowing together, but you can't really isolate each moment separately. Each moment has to be divided into a beginning, a middle and an end, and that sort of be divided out infinitely. So you can never really point at a concrete moment of mind. But so as the mind flows, each mind moment arises in direct continuity upon the previous one, and that previous one arose in direct continuity to the one before that. So if we trace it back, if you think about it logically like that, that can never really be a first moment of mind, which is why so the mind is beginningless. So the mind that's beginningless has, primary and secondary consciousness. Mind and consciousness are synonyms. The main author of this book is Rinpoche, who was a great, one of the great incarnate lamas who came out of Tibet in '59. He was a scholar in Ganden Monastery. When he talks about mind and its types, he says consciousness, awareness, and knower are synonymous. So does Geshela talk about it in Tibetan terms? Shepa, Lo? Rigpa? Well,
Mind of Tibetan Buddhism is Elizabeth Napper, the translator.
Yeah, and the editor. Translated, edited, and introduced by. Mind in Tibetan Buddhism. Snowline.
Okay, and
Now Shambhala.
about the Rosh that you just spoke about.
Lati, Lati. except they spell it this idiosyncratic University of Virginia way, Rinpoche, R-I-N-B-O-C-H-A-Y, which is probably closer to how it's pronounced. Anyway, Jeffrey Heck came up with his own thing. Consciousness are synonymous. They're the broadest terms amongst those dealing with the mind. Any mind, Sem, or mental factor, Sem Jung, is a consciousness, is an awareness, is a knower. These terms should be understood in an active sense because minds are momentary consciousnesses which are active agents of knowing. In Buddhism, mind is not conceived to be merely a general reservoir of information or just a brain mechanism, but to be individual moments of knowing, the continuum of which makes up our sense of knowing. So then consciousness is divided into different ways. Consciousness can be divided in a number of different ways, and a major mode of division is into 7, which I think direct perceivers, inferential cognizers, subsequent cognizers, correctly assuming consciousnesses, awarenesses to which the object appears but is not ascertained, doubting consciousnesses, and wrong consciousnesses. So then the book mainly talks about them. So in my first meditation course, the first thing, and the way Rinpoche would teach, after giving like a general introduction, in which he'd explain, the benefits of Dharma and so on, then he'd read a couple of sentences or a paragraph from the book, and then he would give an explanation of it. So that's how the course went over a month, for a month. And when you're coming into it cold, it was very strange stuff, and I didn't really believe it. I think, as I said before, I thought when I was there, I kept interrupting and trying to argue with my, incredible knowledge, and I kind of felt that I was the person Buddhism had been waiting for 2,500 years to prove it wrong. But eventually the other students told me to shut up, and plus the second half of the course was supposed to be in silence. So instead of blurting out my doubts and questions the moment they arose, I started writing them down in the back of the notebook, So then as the month progressed, then I found that, those questions could be crossed off the list because in the course of time, a lot of stuff was answered. Were you going to say something?
Well, I was just wondering if you could help me further conceptualize. When I contemplate this stuff, I work in hospitals, I've seen many people die working in hospitals. It's clear that there's the essence of consciousness and the manifestation of consciousness. So when someone says, great memory, it's absolutely, to me, rooted in the body, at least to manifest. As I get older, my recall is diminished. And
So while you attribute to the body?
my body's changing, it's not as efficient when my memory is 20. You could ask me something to recall time, when it would be momentary. Now it's like, it's still there. And I think the physiological mechanism to bring it from, let's say, subconscious level into my consciousness is not as efficient. That's a biochemical process.
Could be, but you know, I've seen a number of lamas in their 80s who are just as sharp as ever, even though their bodies are quite decrepit, you know. So it doesn't necessarily relate. I mean, you know, the body is necessary for the mind to express itself. And I think as our body slows down or gets injured or wears out, it's not going to be as efficient a vehicle for expressing what's in our mind. And that doesn't necessarily mean our mind is degenerating. I mean, it depends how we work on, how we develop our mind, I think. I think for ordinary people, the mind does degenerate or slows down as the body does, but that's because we don't... I was talking last time when I was here about how the young monks study and they do a lot of memorization and they try to memorize a lot of stuff in a short time. And it develops the powers of concentration and the powers of retention. And it's like, you know, weight training for the mind, you know. So if you start at an early age, working on your mind like that, and you keep at it,
it's like when you're young, let's say studying, you read it once, bang, you retain it.
Yeah.
As you get older, you got to read it 3 and 4 times. It's just not sticking as well. And it just, like, take the extreme example of death. You don't have a working physical body, you're not manifesting mind. So it seems to me that there's like a pure consciousness, and the body's like a prism. The consciousness goes through the prism, and you have different functions: memory, emotions, multitasking, learning. But when that prism starts to degrade, then you just can't manifest consciousness well.
well, yeah, in some people it might be like that, but in others, I think in people who really do work on their mind, and like, you know, there's lamas and meditators and the yogis. I mean, really, what they're working toward is death, so that their mind will be in the best possible shape, best shape it's ever been at the time they die, so they can control their rebirth, so they won't be reborn under the influence of karma and you know, delusion, the way most of us are, but they'll be able to choose their rebirth, and they choose to be reborn where they can be of continuing benefit to others. So, but I think even in, you know, non-Dharma practitioners, I mean, Stephen Hawking is a quite kind of unusual example, but I mean, his body is like rubbish, you know, but his mind seems as sharp as ever, you know? So that would seem to indicate that they don't necessarily decay together, you know.
You know, people that are mentally sharp and physically erect, or physically sharp and mentally erect, the two, there can be...
Like Dustin Johnson.
They don't have to be synchronized.
I shouldn't say that. You know who Dustin Johnson is? Dustin Johnson?
Dustin Hoffman.
He's a golfer. Anyway, he's a great physical specimen, you know, if you listen to his interviews. Anyway, sorry, Dustin. I think, I think we need to try this out for ourselves, but the theory is that the more you work on the mind, the stronger it gets. And of course, the body influences what we can do, and as our senses deteriorate, we can, maybe it's harder for us to practice, but I think the experience of, the real professional meditators, and what we do is like child's play compared to what really should be done in terms of, studying the Dharma or living according to very pure morality, and then spending many years in retreat, meditating on and realizing the ultimate meaning of the teachings. I think if we were to do that, we'd find our minds are much stronger than our bodies, and even if our bodies decay, our minds are still shining and clear and ready to take a new body. Just like your car wears out and it falls apart, and then you move into a new one. A bit like that. So, I think the people you're saying in dementia ward or something aren't typical of, aren't the beginning and end of, the relationship between the mind and the body. Most of them, I doubt, have really practiced on developing their mind as their life project, So anyway, the course went on, and the teachings were on perfect human rebirth and the three lower realms, and then it came to suffering of the upper realms and the teachings on the Four Noble Truths, and the 8 sufferings, the 6 sufferings, the 3 sufferings that come under the first Noble Truth. And then the second noble truth, the cause of suffering, delusion, and karma. So that's when Zopa taught about the 6 principal delusions and the 20 secondary delusions, which are 26 of the 51 mental factors or secondary minds. Haven't got to that yet.
That's
in this?
course.
The next course, what do you mean?
That's awareness and knowers, and then the next basic program one is mind and mental factors. So awarenesses and knowers is...
Oh, so what's this one called?
Awarenesses and knowers.
The one you're doing now?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's the perception, conception...
But it talks about them here, the root afflictions and the 51 mental factors in this. You'll come to it.
Yeah. I'm talking sort of the basic program content.
Oh yeah. Anyway, it does come here. So when Rinpoche explained these, and then we had to meditate on them, it was like I was meeting myself for the first time, and that's what really, I think it's one of the things that really convinced me that that there was really something of value in this teaching. Because, I'd gone 30 years, I'd worked in a psych ward, I'd been in a psychoanalytic group I've been in group analysis for a year, and I felt I learned far more about myself in this short course than I had in all the rest of my life. And also that, Lama Zopa knew me better than I knew myself. So, so I think these are, these 26 mental factors are really important to study. I mean, they're all important, but these ones in particular, because these are the cause of suffering. The suffering that we don't want is caused by our acting under the influence of these. So it's explained in great detail in these two books anyway, not so much here, not at all. But the six principal the 51 mental factors, there are 5 ever-present mental factors. There are 5 mental factors that are present in every moment of consciousness. Then there are 5 so-called ascertaining mental factors. There are 11 positive or virtuous mental factors. Then there are 6 principal delusions, 20 secondary delusions, and 4 changeable mental factors. So they can be positive or negative depending on motivation. Meditating on the cause of suffering and these 6 principal 20 secondary delusions for me was really kind of a watershed moment in coming to understand the importance of the Dharma. So the 6 principal delusions are the ignorance, which is not understanding the Four Noble Truths, the nature of samsara, the law of karma, and that's the cause of all the delusions. And the second is greed or attachment, a craving for the world of the senses, for form and for objects considered beautiful from their own side. And the third is anger. So also we see, Buddhism talks a lot about ignorance, greed and hatred or anger as being the 3 poisonous minds. And these are the 3 main delusions. So here but also the first 3 of the 6. And pride, there are 7 kinds of pride. So I don't need to detail those. Then doubt, not being sure whether something's true or not, which is why we do analytical meditation, to try to resolve our doubts about different aspects of the teachings. And there's a quote from, it says Nagarjuna, I'm not sure if it was Nagarjuna actually. Those who doubt powerfully have the power to realize the truth, provided they investigate their doubts. So doubt is encouraged as long as we investigate our doubts and come to a conclusion. So that's the 5th principal delusion, doubt. And the 6th is called the doctrine of delusion, or views. So they're ignorant beliefs or wrong understandings. The belief that the 5 skandhas, 5 aggregates, are I, are the self. The 5 aggregates. We do it in Heart Sutra every time. Belief that the I ceases, the self can cease. Then having no belief, or believing that negative actions bring happiness. And believing that those first three are the right thing to believe in, and the fifth wrong view is that mistaken modes of conduct are the path to liberation. Like animal sacrifice or bathing in the Ganges or things like that. So, for the 20 secondary delusions, why don't we just meditate on these? If I describe it briefly, and then just look inside to see if you recognize it within yourself. So when we were doing this, Rinpoche explained in an earlier stage that Dharma is like a mirror for the mind, so that we can see ourselves reflected in the Dharma teachings, and again that meditating on these mental factors really brought that home, because I could really see myself reflected clearly in those teachings. So belligerence. Belligerence is an intention to harm another through striking and so forth. When one is in any of the 9 situations of harmful intent, thinking this person has harmed me, this person is harming me, this person will harm me, this person has harmed my friend, this person is harming my friend, this person will harm my friend, this person has helped my enemy, this person is helping my enemy, this person will help my enemy. So belligerence serves as the basis for bearing weapons, punishing and preparing to injure others. So see if you recognize that mental factor within yourself. Wishing to give harm. Then there's resentment. Resentment is a wish to harm or to answer harm involving non-release of a continuum of anger. It has the function of serving as a basis for impatience. Resentment. And concealment. Concealment is a wish through the force of ignorance to hide a fault when another person, such as a spiritual guide, points out that fault. It has the function of increasing faults, of serving as a basis for contrition and not abiding in contact with happiness, and of impelling rebirth in bad migrations. Concealment. Spite. Spite is a wish through the force of belligerence and resentment, the first two, to speak harsh words out of ill will to another who has pointed out a fault. It has the function of causing one not to abide in happiness in this lifetime by causing engagement in many faulty actions, such as speaking harsh words, and by generating many non-meritorious actions. Spite also generates unpleasant fruitions in future lives. Spite. Jealousy. Jealousy is a disturbance of the mind from the depths that involves an inability to bear another's fortune due to being attached to goods and services. It involves hatred and has the function of causing discomfort of mind and not abiding in contact with happiness. Miserliness. Miserliness is a tight holding onto articles without letting them go through the power of attachment to goods and services. It has the function of serving as a basis for the non-diminishment of possessions, and it generates the unwanted in this and later lives. Deceit. Deceit is a pretension of having good qualities, whereas one does not. Through the force of strong attachment to goods and services. As in the case of the hypocrisy of pretending to have a disciplined mind in order to deceive others, deceit can involve ignorance and desire and has the function of serving as a basis for wrong livelihood. Wrong livelihood refers to deceitfully gaining goods through hypocrisy, speaking soft words in accordance with another's thought, through praising others' possessions, through speaking on the faults of miserliness and so forth, and through praising another's act of giving. So those are 5 wrong livelihoods. So it's deceit. Dissimulation. Dissimulation is a wish to hide one's faults from others through the force of desire for goods and services. Both dissimulation and deceit have the function of preventing the attainment of true preceptual instruction and cause one in this and future lifetimes not to meet with the Mahayana spiritual guide. Haughtiness. Haughtiness is a puffing up of the mind through taking joy and comfort in observing one's own good health, youth, beauty, power, signs of long life, prosperity, and so forth. It has the function of serving as a basis for all afflictions and secondary afflictions and acts as a root of non-conscientiousness. Harmfulness. Harmfulness is an unmerciful wish to harm other sentient beings. Involving anger, it is a lack of compassion as in wanting to harm or cause others to harm, or in taking delight when seeing or hearing of harm to sentient beings. It has the function of injuring others. Non-shame. Non-shame is a non-avoidance of faults from the viewpoint of one's own disapproval or of religious prohibition. It can involve desire, hatred, and ignorance, and has the function of assisting all root afflictions and secondary afflictions. For example, if a monk, when encountering an intoxicant, did not avoid drinking it, thinking, this is something I should not do, he would have the mental factor of non-shame. non-embarrassment. Non-embarrassment is a non-avoidance of faults from the viewpoint of another's disapproval. So non-shame is from the viewpoint of one's own disapproval. Non-embarrassment is the non-avoidance of faults from the viewpoint of another's disapproval. It can involve desire, hatred and ignorance, and has the function of assisting all root afflictions and secondary afflictions. If one does not avoid faults, thinking that the teacher Buddha and clairvoyant gods would be disturbed and others would criticize oneself, one would have non-embarrassment. It and non-shame, the previous one, assist all afflictions and act as causes of all faults. For without a wish to avoid faults, one cannot keep from them. Thus these two mental factors are said to accompany all non-virtuous minds. Non-shame and non-embarrassment. The Buddha himself said, when addressing the monks, he said, monks, there are two things that keep the world on an even keel. What are those two? Shame and fear of blame. Lethargy. Lethargy is a heaviness and unserviceability of body and mind. It involves ignorance and has the function of assisting all root and secondary afflictions. For independence on lethargy, these increase. Excitement. Excitement is a scattering of the mind to attributes of the desire realm experienced previously and an engagement in them with attachment. Excitement is a non-peacefulness of mind that involves desirous engagement in the pleasant. It has the function of preventing calm abiding. So we experience that really whenever we try to meditate. Our mind runs everywhere except onto the object of meditation. Non-faith. Non-faith is non-conviction, non-delight, and non-wishing with respect to virtuous phenomena. It involves ignorance and has the function of serving as a basis for laziness. Non-faith is the opposite of the three types of faith. It is a non-conviction in actions and their effects, etc., non-delight and dislike of the possessors of auspicious qualities, such as the three jewels, and non-wishing and non-seeking of liberation and so forth. Non-faith. Laziness. Laziness is a non-delight in virtue due to attachment to lying down and so forth. It involves ignorance and has the function of preventing application in virtue. Non-conscientiousness. Non-conscientiousness causes a looseness of mind, not keeping it from afflictions and faults, and resulting in non-cultivation of virtuous phenomena. It can involve an abiding in desire, hatred and ignorance, as well as laziness, and has the function of serving as a basis for the increase of non-virtues and the decrease of virtues. Non-conscientiousness. Forgetfulness. Forgetfulness is an unclarity of mind and a forgetting of virtuous objects through mindfulness of objects of the afflictions. It has the function of serving as a basis for distraction in that, based on afflicted mindfulness, the mind is distracted to the objects of observation of the afflictions. So, when we're trying to meditate on the breath, for example, it's easy for our mind to become scattered or distracted by, excitement, because we also have forgetfulness. It's very easy for us to forget that our mind is supposed to be on the breath. Non-introspection. Non-introspection is an unknowing engagement in physical, verbal and mental deeds. It has the function of serving as a basis for the infraction of codes of ethics, breaking our vows. Non-introspection, not knowing what we're doing, not being aware of what we're doing. Distraction. Distraction is the scattering of the mind from its object of observation. It can involve desire, hatred and ignorance, and has the function of preventing separation from desire. Excitement is a scattering of the mind to pleasant objects, whereas distraction is a scattering to any object. So hearing about those 20 and having them described, and then seeing them in myself was first time I really saw myself as I am, unfortunately. So anyway, that's very brief, but I mean, if you study these, think about them, read more about them, and they use different terms for them in these different books, and they're described in different ways. So it gives, having more sources, it gives more, different ways of coming at one thing, and helps deepen your understanding. And then so, the more we can recognize these negative mental factors within ourselves, the easier it is to avoid them and to avoid the suffering that they cause. So Lama Yeshe always used to say that, the study of Buddhism is the study of yourself, the study of the human mind. It's not really the study of Buddha or someone in the sky or like that. It's just learning about yourself. And the main thing to learn about ourselves is our mind. So that's why, studying topics like this is really so important. Does Geshela make you memorize this?
Just mine. Trying to memorize it.
Well, this is what they memorize when they're like 6 years old.
Yeah.
The young monks, 6 or 7, Okay, so I think that's it. That's what I really wanted, but that's all I got. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll do dedication prayers.
We can go to page 39, I believe.
The page 39, start with a Thanksgiving mandala offering. For my two collections vast the space that I have from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing, using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion. May I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart growing out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time. By even this graded course to enlightenment completed, due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of and their children, may all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity, make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths, never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes an effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may all things in Gyatso-chen Rizik remain in life till samsara's end. Dong ni ning je zungu jokela che che selde ganchen tendroigon chagna pemo tenzin gyatsola so depso jedun nun rupsho. Page 49, short long life prayer for Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Tuk cho chang jin jam gon gyao wei, tenzin gyom peo wei kun zo dok po ze, chok sum kor wei leg mun tu tru, dak sok do je gun du shap ten sho. Page 57, bottom. Prayers of dedication. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. Precious supreme Bodhi mind, may it where unborn arise, and where born never decline, but increase forevermore. Page 75, Miksema. Make me te waiter chen chen raising, dream make him pay wang po jam yang gang chen ke pei zu gian song kapa love sandra pe jabla so. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you very much.
I
I will have to accost you for questions at a later time. Only announcement tonight. Tomorrow there'll be a teaching by Master Hao. Oh, no, I've forgotten his name. Haidao. He's teaching tomorrow night. It's focused on the Chinese community. It's touch and go if there will be any English translations, but we do ask that we have some people be here just before 6 o'clock, because at 6 o'clock we start with Guru Puja, which is going to be a short one. We'll just do the Tog offering. So we'll have the altar, we'll do some recitation, do the Tog offering, and then after that, Master Hao, he will be teaching at that point. So, yeah. So I encourage people to please be here to just help welcome people and show them around. And that's pretty much tomorrow. And then next week, on Sunday, Geshela's teaching. And then next week we have Rinpoche Losangdelek, the abbot of Serajay Monastery. He's getting here on Tuesday. I believe it's Tuesday. Yeah, it's in the newsletter when he's arriving. But we have help for all the breakfasts, right, Jennifer? We have help for all the breakfasts. We do ask that we need to get some drivers available. We need to check with Geshela how, what, where, when, but if we need drivers during that, the 10 days they're here to take them here and there, or maybe run errands, we can find out more about that. So keep an eye on newsletter if you want, and if you're not yet on the volunteers email list, please contact either me or Jennifer. We'll much appreciate, but no pressure. And then obviously after Rinpoche, we've got a little bit of a gap, and then we have Ling Rinpoche and Dawei Rinpoche arriving here. And then just sort of a sidetrack thing is Lama Zopa Rinpoche is teaching for 2 weeks, middle 2 weeks of August. Is it last 2 weeks? I know it's from the 13th to the 28th. Oh, that's true. I'm getting it like 2 days before Ling Rinpoche gets. Wonderful. So anyone who's the lamp of the path, and if you want to get more information, just simply this is an FBMT thing, not a Kurukulla thing, but highly, highly, highly recommended to go for 2 weeks worth of teachings of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Cool. Thank you. Thank you again, Nick.